guys, E1099 here, and welcome to this type of commentary video. I've not done one of these in a few months. Nothing because there's been nothing that controversially pisses me off. I mean, there's the election that's coming up, like, the actual election's starting about tomorrow, so, yeah, who the fuck knows where either we are going to war with Russia or we're going to war with the Mexicans. I mean, how can you decide Hillary and Donald? But in terms of this, I've been sticking a lot to video games. The one game that I'm very interested in, but I'm probably not going to get for a while, is Battlefield 1. We all know Battlefield 1, the World War I simulator that is going to be a hit smash and is really putting it up against Call of Duty of their Infinite Warfare. But apparently, get this right, Battlefield 1's sexist. I may not believe it, you may not believe it, but these women, they believe it. And they have got some decent proof that it's real. Roll the clip, Phil. So pretty much before the video actually starts, that's the channel that is. It's called The Know. They're one of those like YouTube channels that report on gaming news. So it's nothing all that new, I just wanted to point that out before the video starts, okay? So, yeah.
Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm Meg Turney.
Hopes are high for Battlefield 1 this fall, but some gamers are taking issue with one recent development about its multiplayer, which will not be adding female playable characters.
So yeah, that is what the video is about. There are some women in the gaming community that do not like that Battlefield 1, bearing in mind, is pretty much a World War I simulator, and historically accurate to World War I, are not adding female characters into multiplayer. But yeah, like seriously.
Certainly not new for the series, as it hasn't had any playable women in multiplayer yet anyway, but, you know, why not?
It's Battlefield 1, like you've always had it, but it's time to get angry.
And as the woman said in the video, the entire Battlefield series has not had playable women characters in multiplayer. And it's like, I don't know, maybe because unlike Call of Duty, Battlefield is actually historically accurate, and like women, especially at World War I times, were not in the front line. I'm not saying that they were not in the war, because they were as nurses, but they weren't in the front line actually fighting anybody.
Of course, there's an argument brewing about whether or not the exclusion makes sense in this case.
Now look, we're gonna look at both sides of this. Some are saying that it's an issue of authenticity, that women weren't a major part of World War I combat, so that's why there aren't really any playable women in multiplayer.
However, others are saying multiplayer combat in general isn't all that realistic, so why should it matter?
Yeah.
It's all just falling under the same goddamn argument, because as you said, the people were counter-saying about the multiplayer thing, saying multiplayers aren't that realistic, because that's the genuine stereotype about all multiplayer first-person shooter games. But here's the thing though, that's the beauty of Battlefield. And again, under the same argument, they make realistic. Think about it, Battlefield 1942 was to take place in World War II. Battlefield Vietnam took place in Vietnam. Battlefield 1943 took place in World War II again. Battlefield 3 in Battlefield 2142, I think it was, in the future. And now Battlefield 1 in World War I. However, Call of Duty and like Tom Clancy, they're on in random different wars, so there's no historically accuracy to there. But that's the beauty of Battlefield.
This information comes by way of programmer Amandine Kojit, formerly of DICE, who tweeted about an internal discussion of the company when it came to adding women in the multiplayer.
Now, according to her, the game was originally going to have women in multiplayer, but the decision was later reversed. She tweeted, "The original BF1 pitch given on stage was World War I with one caveat. Screw realism, we're adding female soldiers because we're way overdue."
DICE later changed its mind because it wanted to focus on authenticity. However, it came out later that the real reason was the boys wouldn't find women in multiplayer very believable.
Well, hang on. That whole sentence, that last bit, that was definitely English. I could understand the words. It was just placed horribly. So what they were trying to say is that they originally were going to put women soldiers in the game, but didn't because boys find that females in multiplayer are not realistic. Like, what the fuck? That makes zero sense. Like, here's the thing, most multiplayer characters, you usually play them off characteristics that the guys like. And most of the time they just choose male characters. And I know that the boys take over most of the gaming market, not saying there's no girls who play video games. I'm not using Gamer Girl because that's a fucking shit name. But yeah, so it's just, I don't know. Anyways, I'll probably anyone get triggered by this anyway, so who knows.
Of course, there are some players upset over the fact that you can't choose to play as a woman in the multiplayer. After all, that's an option in Call of Duty. They've had that since Ghosts in 2013, plus Black Ops 3 even let you play as a woman for the main character of the campaign.
It keeps going back to the same argument. Battlefield 1 fields off authenticity. However, the people in this thing are just not getting it. I understand that in Call of Duty Ghosts, probably Black Ops 2, 3, Infinite Warfare, Advanced Warfare, you can play as female characters, but here's the thing. The wars in those Call of Duty games are fictional. They're not real. And Battlefield 1 requires an authenticity to stay to the actual fit product.
Battlefront, another DICE game, also allowed playable female characters in multiplayer. And even taking all of that out of the equation, it's 2016. Just about every game that has any sort of customization has a male or female as its first choice.
It just gets me so triggered. I mean, they said nearly all games that have multiplayer customization have a male or female. What about the people that don't associate with those genders, huh? I'm triggered by that. I am very triggered. That's obviously sarcasm if you didn't fucking get it.
Really are sticking with it. YouTube series The Great War, which is a show totally dedicated to World War I, which you should watch, did a special episode just taking apart the game's reveal trailer.
All in all, despite a few little flubs, they found it to be really surprisingly incredibly accurate and authentic. They even congratulated DICE on picking out details that largely go unnoticed about World War I.
Now, the flip side of this argument is that the multiplayer matches require some suspension of disbelief in general. Multiplayer combat in and of itself is pretty unrealistic. I think we can all admit that. So adding female characters doesn't break the illusion in any way.
Well, players for the most part accept that multiplayer doesn't reflect the authenticity or believability of any particular.
Of course, Battlefield 1's multiplayers are going to be considered unrealistic because the war has already happened, and if they played it off like really realistic of like what actually happened, then there's no point of even having multiplayer in the slightest. It's, in my opinion, it's all about either rewriting history or just completely changing it. It's just a makeshift thing that just makes the levels of Battlefield 1 more better. It's something I actually agree with them at this point.
It was an actual thing that did happen in World War I. So the authenticity angle might not even make that much sense here.
A number of world powers incorporated women into their armed forces, including the Ottoman Empire, Russia, and even the US Navy. So if you're really going for realism here, guys, maybe those armies should have playable women.
I would like that. Like, just some of them have. Yeah, anyway, it's be good.
Yes, women are part of the armed forces, but most of them were just either helping with the mechanics of like planes and tanks and shit, or nurses. And I know that there might have been a few that's only got into the front line, but it's just a generic thing, and they're just not going to believe that women were mostly on the front line, especially for World War One. Even in World War Two, that didn't really happen. It's not really mostly accepted about women being on the front line until about like pretty much the Iraqi War, or maybe the Cold War. I'm not too particularly sure, but it's just a thing you can't really over-centralize and saying, oh, there was like 10 women that fought the front line for the US. We should put them all in just generally, because that would just make zero sense.
Regardless of how this game ships, though, and who it does or doesn't include in the multiplayer, this is kind of an issue that keeps popping up in the industry.
That is something I actually do agree with. This argument about why aren't women in certain games is just ridiculous. But then again, it's all about this weird argument, because on one hand, there's people complaining that women aren't in video games, but then there's the other people complaining that if women are in video games, all they are just over-sexualized, which we all know is pretty bullshit, and they're just over-sexualizing things. Like take, I think it was Dana, I believe, from Homefront: The Revolution. She's not over-sexualized, but it's just a genuine thing that feminists bring up, saying that women are sexualized in video games, which we all know is not true.
Nintendo's had to tackle this exact problem when talking about the new Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Prior to E3, there was a heavy speculation based on official Nintendo art and the open world direction of the game that players would have the option for some light customization of Link, including whether or not you want a Link or a Linkette.
But since E3, we've learned that won't be the case, and some have taken issue with Nintendo's explanation as to why. So far, their main reasoning behind the decision is that it would mess with the Triforce, since Ganon is male, Link is male, and Zelda is female.
According to them, Link is always going to be the main character of Legend of Zelda, and Link is always going to be male. But whenever they talk about a female main character for Legend of Zelda, they always talk about Sheik or Zelda herself. For some reason, they don't want to entertain the idea of Link being a girl.
And
maybe because that Link is probably, I don't know, one of the most recognizable game characters of all in Nintendo's history, like second to Mario. And that's the thing I do not get is they go on saying about the Link and Linkette thing. You can't change Link. You can't have the Bruce and Caitlyn situation with Zelda, with The Legend of Zelda, because Link, I know is a guy, and they did go on about a Linkette, but it just would make zero sense to the gaming public.
Of course, no matter how all this shakes out, we know that there will continue to be gamers on both sides of the issue. If DICE insists that authenticity is of the utmost importance, you can really hardly fault him for it, although having women wouldn't make the game inauthentic.
But you also can't blame players for wanting more choices because, come on, we love us some customization.
And I agree with that. Players can choose customization as much as they want, but it's just DICE, who are making Battlefield, they've just decided to keep this thing all authentic. Which we all agree on, it's their opinion, and why try to change that. But we all love customization. I hate if this video makes me sound like I'm just a massive sexist. I'm not. I'm just saying I do have problems of the way people try to vent out about and try to fix gender equality and all that. Especially like, what was that? There was a group of vegans that actually like got branded and shit. Like this, what the fuck? Just, I hate when it gets taken to the extreme and just people need to chill. So pretty much that's the end of the video. They pretty much just ended and all that. So that, on my current thing, is gaming companies can do whatever they like. But it's just, I hate how people take this thing to the extreme about not allowing to choose between gender characters and all that. But it's just, it's the game companies, it's their decision. They can pretty much do, they sort of do what they like. And it's not like we can change. I mean, if they did mess up and there was a massive uprising, I can understand that. But when only like 50% of people agree to that, it's not really a big thing. It's not like a 75% uprising. So it's just we got to leave it at that. So yeah. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully we can get back to doing some of these like commentary things where I rant on about people. It'd actually be something really enjoyable. I mean, if we can just getting support on that, that'd be great. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later.